Okay.
The Venezia is a tier 10 Italian heavy cruiser, and it is how wargaming give pity to a country with a ridiculously incompetent navy and their terribly designed ships. The Venezia, however, is completely made up, with no historical drawings or even a napkin design, which is great, because the Italians weren't particularly good at designing cruisers, and I'm glad that wargaming thinks the same way. Beside, a fantasy ship means total creative freedom at designing and balancing. Can't argue about design limits on things that has never existed in the first place. So, what kind of overcompensation does the Venezia get? To start, it has 15 8-inch guns in 5 triple turrets, arranged in a somewhat familiar layout. I'm no naval historian, but I'm pretty sure this arrangement has nothing to do with prior Italian designs. This also extends to the hull, that were probably designed by a real spaghetti enjoyer. They like it long, narrow, and slippery. Then they throw in a lot of Parmesan cheese to cover up the lack of an actual flavor, such as low freeboard, spaced armor, including an icebreaker. Have I mentioned that it also goes 36 knots? Actually, I probably forgot if it had any weakness at all. Let's see. Nope, it's simply the perfect ship. Just kidding, it has pathetic AA. But even that isn't much of a problem anymore. And who even cares about AA anyway? But the biggest overcorrection wargaming made to the ship, and also to the whole tech tree, is the introduction of SAP shells, also known as super annoying projectile. You get the reliability of HE, along with a much higher alpha damage than AP, at the exchange of EPM, and not being able to set fire, which is great news for battleship players. Is this the perfect shell? Have we reached peak balancing? Have we finally satisfied the vocal minority? Well, not exactly. See, the way SAP works can make an outcome of an engagement a little bit more extreme than other shells. It's not uncommon to drop disproportionately high damage bombs to smaller ships, but the moment someone angles, the damage drop off is comparable to the value of your favorite meme coins. So a counterplay does exist, and it is an important thing to remember if you want to master the Venezia. But before we talk about how to play the ship, we have to address the smoker in the room. It has a smoke generator that is able to conceal the ship when it's going at full speed, which enables the Venezia to get away from anything if the player got a little too greedy, but can also be used to close the distance without taking damage. It may be yet another bullshit consumable, but if we are gonna get there, then we have a lot to talk about. At least this one does not change any properties on the ship itself. After all, we are still giving courtesy to the Italian Navy. And lastly, it gets submarine surveillance to spot submerged submarines. That means your presence would basically deter any submarines in the vicinity. This is on top of SAP shells that will pretty much seal their fate when you manage to catch them. There are two ways to play the Venezia. There is the normal build for people with a personality of a wet cardboard, and there is the legendary mod Lighthouse build, if you want everyone to know how mentally deranged you've become. I'm not going through the first one because you'll overcook your brain so hard the only thing left to do is to congratulate yourself. So I'm focusing on the second build, which is doubling down on your self-hatred of being too familiar with the game. Highlights include zero concealment upgrades, chronic lung cancer, and gatekeeping masterclass. Going for this build will make the ship visible from anywhere on the map. Be not afraid, and start making yourself used to it, because you will be rewarded with a permanent 10% decrease in reload time from top grade gunner skill. Why is this a big deal? Well, because it has 21 seconds base reload, and you want to lower it as much as possible. Along with this, the heavy sap skill will further boost damage, and with the right circumstances, the outnumbered skill will make it even more accurate. Don't forget to also use Luigi as your captain. You start by deciding which part of the map you want to dominate. The flanks will be safer, with more opportunity to activate outnumbered, but it will take more time to farm damage. Meanwhile, the middle of the map gives a better chance at catching broadsides, but this works both ways, so pick a struggle. Then, you shoot anyone in range, and after you take away 1/3 of its HP, you switch targets, and repeat, until you get the Confederate achievement, further reducing reload by 15% if you use the only legendary captain worth gambling for. This is the primary gameplay loop. There is no need to do anything else. Talk about an exciting ship. However, the fun part comes when you realize that the Venezia is a ship nobody really wants to fight. Smaller ships avoids it like a plague, especially submarines. Cruisers lost 1/3 of its HP when they show broadside, and battleships get catfished for eternity. Yet the moment the enemy put all their effort into killing a Venezia, it just smokes up and run away. You don't find opportunities, you let them come to you. After all, nobody could ignore a conspicuous Italian pelting down their HP, but when they do ignore you, that becomes your chance to pull off plays that can turn the match into your favor, like hopping between islands and dive bombing important ships. Remember, you have 5 attempts at getting away with it, by using a World of Warship equivalent of a very good lawyer. There is one big flaw to this build. You become very predictable. This means you must avoid being in open water during mid to late game. Instead, start making friends with islands, but don't get too close. Friendly destroyers will also greatly appreciate your presence, and don't worry about being accused of sniping. It's not sniping if your surface concealment becomes your effective range. The legendary Lighthouse Venezia is a build that will help you become better at dealing meaningful damage. You can even make your own mini-game like shooting different part of the ship to avoid damage saturation. But one of the key advantage of using this build is terror. The simple fact that it made the ship more visible than most battleships is enough to make the enemy feel very uncomfortable about it, even if they don't really know why. So go out there and create new hulls on destroyers and submarines. Just don't let them do the same to you. This is how you disrupt a Zoom meeting. You take grease the gears, eye in the sky, superintendent, and top grade gunner, then take heavy sap, adrenaline rush, outnumbered, and finally gun feeder. Alternatively, you can replace outnumbered with survivability expert and consumables specialist. For the upgrades, you take either main armament mod 1 or spotting aircraft mod 1, then take engine room protection, smoke generator mod 1, steering gears, augmented smoke generators, and finally main battery mod 3. The Venezia is one of the most terrifying ship to play against, a reliable cruiser that specializes in committing terrible crimes and getting away with it, smoking destroyers before lighting a smoke for itself like a level 100 mob boss. It is also a really good looking paper ship, and I really want to have it on my desk, so here it is. This is the biggest ship model I've made by far. You think the Fuso is big? That is nothing compared to tier 10 cruisers, particularly the Venezia. In fact, I have to split the hull just to make this work, to the dismay of absolutely no one.
Italy's crying, not approved!
But because it's really big, I can model in a lot of details, like a really over-engineered main turret that can be printed in place while still able to be elevated. The bad news is, it has 6 million AA guns that were really small, but are necessary to complete the look. The other complications I have to face are the colors, a very important thing at defining the identity of Italian ships. This particular blue is the closest one I've found, along with the green. I think you can agree that they look the part. Sorry, I mean they look Italian enough. However, I'm particularly proud of how the bow turns out, an alternating red and white color printed as separate pieces. I call it the pizza, makes it easier to remember. The decks are separated as well, so they can be printed in different colors, and makes everything easier to be printed correctly. That being said, I kinda cheated a bit here. I used multicolor prints on some of the parts like the gun barrels and the funnel, because I just can't be bothered to paint them. I also tried making an easy removable support that were part of the model instead of something you have to add in the slicing program. It seems to work very well, so I'll incorporate this to future model, to hopefully make printing easier. The rest of the ship are standard affair, although some parts were rather annoying to assemble due to their size and proximity with others like these lifeboats on the middle of the ship. Takes a bit of patience, but you'll get there. I say this is the most difficult model to assemble compared to my previous two, but also the most detailed. I'm sure it will look great, even if you only use 1 or 2 colors like the Fuso model. Anyway, that is all for now. Hope you enjoyed the video and the model. I will see you on the next one.